Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Kalani Live. This is episode number 22. So that's good for me because I like the number 2. So that's awesome. Also, we're streaming this live onto YouTube. And so if you're listening to this on the podcast version, make sure you spend a little bit of time, go to my YouTube channel, kalanimusic.com, and catch this in the video. You can also see how I do with my goal of getting through this entire podcast without doing any edits. So that's one of my goals. But I think the other reason to go to YouTube is so that we can communicate there. You know, there's a comment area below all of the YouTube videos. So I'd love to hear from some of you. I know, a lot of you have questions and comments. I get emails all the time from people all over the world. And although I do respond to them, it would be great if we could have an ongoing conversation. And if you put your questions in my YouTube channel, I can get back to you, and then everybody can benefit from not only seeing your question, but seeing my answer. So it's a nice way for us to communicate. So go to the YouTube channel, whether you're listening to this on the podcast or on YouTube, and leave a comment there. Say hello, and leave your comments about what I'm going to be talking about next, which is therapeutic music making. I get a lot of questions and emails, tweets, and Facebook questions about therapeutic music making, therapeutic drumming, music therapy, all sorts of things. And so I decided to devote an entire episode to therapeutic music making. And while I'm going to talk about therapeutic music making, I know some of you are also interested in music therapy. Some of you may not know what the difference between therapeutic music and music therapy is. So I want to give you a couple places you can look to find out some information about that. One, of course, is the American Music Therapy Association. So you can go there and find out about music therapy. What I've written is a few posts on my website, Kalani Music. There's a couple that I picked for you if you're interested in finding out more about the subtle differences. One is called Drumming for Therapeutic Outcomes. That's a post on my website. The other one is called Music Therapy, More Than Meets the Eyes and Ears. Those are both on kalanimusic.com. So you can find those there and read up on that. Okay, so let's get into therapeutic music. This would apply to therapeutic drumming. It's not limited to drumming or flute or singing. This would apply to all forms of music making, but the same general definition applies, and a lot of the same applications also apply. So whatever is your main instrument modality, whether you're a singer or you like to play the Native American flute or you like to play the drums or you're into bagpipes or whatever it is, this is all going to be about the therapeutic uses of music. So let's look at a definition. Therapeutic music is the intentional use of a music-based experience designed to positively affect one's physical, cognitive, and or emotional state. And you could even add a spiritual state, if you like, into that list. So I'll read that again. Therapeutic music is the intentional use of music-based experiences designed to positively affect one's physical, cognitive, and or emotional state. So it's really something that we do music-based that we use because we want to move from one state to another state. And I'll talk about a few of those in a minute. It's not so much about the genre, it's not like that all new age music is therapeutic or all hard rock is therapeutic. It's not so much about the instrumentation, so it's not even so much about whether it's flute or drumming or singing. And it really isn't even about the aesthetic value. It's not that one type of music is going to be more therapeutic because it's better or because more people like it. So in this regard, it really becomes subjective because the end user is the one who has to decide whether it's therapeutic for him or her or not. So we can't really use it prescriptively. We can't say that a certain type of music is therapeutic and other types of music are not. It's just the use, so it's the application of the music, not the music itself, that makes it, gives it therapeutic value, okay? Now, many of you already use music therapeutically, and if I give you the opportunity, I'm sure you can think of a few ways that you use music therapeutically. If you didn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the goal in studying and practicing therapeutic music is to deepen our understanding of not only what it is, but also to explore ways we can make music more effective as a therapeutic tool. And one of the first steps that we can take with that goal in mind is to identify some of the ways that we already use music and that music is already being used therapeutically. So let's move on and do that right now. So I've got a list of 7 ways that I feel music is being used therapeutically, and I would love to hear your ideas and your additions to this list. And so when I'm done with this, you can leave them below if you're on the YouTube channel. The first one is something that we've probably all done, which is just singing in the shower or car to help reduce the effects of stress. And this would be a therapeutic use of music because it's not just that we're singing, it's that we're singing for a reason, and that is to reduce the effects of stress. So getting back to our definition, therapeutic music is the intentional use of music-based experiences designed to positively affect one's physical, cognitive, and/or emotional state. So you're feeling a little bit of anxiety. Anxiety is the result of too much stress, feeling overstressed, and you decide that singing will make you feel better, and so you do it, and you feel better, and you've just engaged in therapeutic music making. Number 2 would be singing or playing an instrument before going to bed to improve the quality of your sleep. And this is something that I've been recommending more and more, especially to my Native American flute students, because that engages the breath. And those of you who have practiced meditation, or you practice yoga, or you've been to a stress reduction seminar, I'm sure that all of those, every instance of that, you've heard something about breathing and the breath and how important it is to modulate our breathing so we can have a benefit. And that's why I like the flute as a tool for music making related to breathing. But you can still reap benefits if you're doing other types of instrumental play. I just like the flute. That's what I think of primarily when I think about relaxing before going to bed. But at the same time, I've kept my ukulele by my bed. You can play a frame drum before going to sleep. The main idea here is that you're engaging in this activity to reduce the effects of stress. So you would do what we just talked about, number 1. But if you can improve your breathing, if you can slow and deepen your breathing through singing or playing the flute, you will prepare your body and your mind and your emotional state for sleep. And we know through studies that if you improve the quality of your sleep, if you get better quality sleep, you will have a better quality next day. You'll feel better. You'll probably be more alert. You will, because you're more alert and you feel better, you'll probably be treating other people better. You'll treat yourself better. You'll do a better job. And all of those things translate into a more enjoyable life, higher quality life, maybe more peaceful life, but it at the very least, probably a more productive life. And if you're more productive, you're going to do better. You'll do well. You'll feel good. So just this little act of playing music for 10 or 15 minutes before falling asleep can have a huge impact throughout your life. And it definitely falls under the category of therapeutic music making. Number 3 would be singing or playing an instrument to raise your energy level. So in this regard, we're looking at it from the other perspective of wanting to increase our energy level. And, an example of that might be you come home from work, it's late afternoon, early evening, you're feeling that kind of lull and you need some energy, you want to feel energized. So you play your djembe or you play some Arab rhythms on your darbuka or you do some singing. Maybe you dance as well. Maybe you have a dance musical experience, and you energize yourself. And in that way, you're positively affecting your physical, cognitive, and emotional state through a musical experience, therefore using music therapeutically. Another one would be singing and playing instruments to enhance a spiritual or religious practice. And we know through looking back in history from shamanic practices all the way up till today in institutional religious practices, places of worship all over the world, that music is used absolutely to positively affect our physical, cognitive, and emotional states, to support that spiritual practice, whether that's something you do on your own or it's something you do in a group or a large group of people, thousands of people. And that's one of the nice things about music, is that you can have a virtually unlimited number of people participating in the same experience. But that would be another form of therapeutic music making, because it's being used intentionally to positively affect our physical, cognitive, and emotional state. And even in that case, our spiritual state. So I'm going to talk about two more that would come into play more in a community setting. One, not necessarily in a community setting, but the last one, absolutely community setting. But they're related, and that is, one of them is using music as a nonverbal form of expression to help one expand options for sharing thoughts and feelings, and maybe things that you can't even categorize as thoughts or feelings. Maybe there's something else that you feel compelled to express. And one of the wonderful things about music, probably more so than some other art forms, is that it happens in the now. It happens in the moment. And therefore, it gives us options of tapping into subconscious thoughts and feelings and directly connecting us with those things and helping bring them out. So it helps us not only to connect with things, but to identify them, to express them, to externalize them, which can be incredibly valuable. And actually, as a music therapist, of course, that's one of the things that we do to help our clients in their treatment process, in their treatment program. So using a therapeutic music intervention could be part of a music therapy treatment program. It doesn't have to be part of music therapy. It could be part of another treatment program. But it certainly can help people find a way to express themselves that is a workaround for what I think of as a pretty clumsy tool, which is language. Language is great, but between you and me and the rest of the world, I think it can be overrated. We can think that we're expressing things through language in a way that's efficient and accurate and substantial and sufficient. And I think that we're fooling ourselves if we think we're doing that. Language is great, but music on top of language or supplementing language in artistic form. I mean, look, this is why we have art. If language was enough, we probably wouldn't have music, and we wouldn't have visual arts, and we wouldn't have dance. The reason we have the arts is because we need them, because we are aesthetic beings, and we're spiritual beings, and we need more than just language. So let's use that. Let's use the arts. That's why we've developed them. That's why we're making them accessible to people. That's what they're there for. So let's use it. Another way you can use music therapeutically is, of course, and this follows from the last application, which was a form of expression, is a form of communication. So if we have a lot of people, well, even two people, expressing subconscious or unconscious thoughts, feelings, ideas, constructs, whatever it is, and they're doing that together, now they're communicating something beyond words. They're communicating ideas of support, ideas of partnership, ideas of mutual respect, humor, heartfelt feelings, feelings of warmth, feelings of community. And music allows us to do that. I think perhaps better, and of course I'm biased, I enjoy all the arts, don't get me wrong, but I think music, because it is a now experience, you can't plan too far ahead when you're playing music with other people, especially if you're improvising. And there it is. You have this in-the-moment nonverbal communication. And the nonverbal aspect not only allows people to express things that they cannot express through words, it also helps people who do not speak the same language find a common corridor, find a common path, a common ground for communication. So it surpasses language in that way, which can be really valuable when you're working with an international group of people and you want to increase feelings of mutual support and community between that group. It could also work with, for example, and some of you I know listening and watching this, you do this kind of work. You work maybe with a group of at-risk teens or an after-school program where the goal is to increase pro-social behaviors, to alleviate feelings of alienation and tension between peers in a school, thereby reducing maladaptive behaviors like bullying. So we can use music as the container and as the medium for communication without the use of words, which is fantastic because, as I'm sure many of you are aware, when we rely on words, we're relying on this fairly clumsy tool to begin with, and we're also assuming that people are going to be expressing what they mean accurately, and then we're kind of also assuming that people are going to be interpreting what other people say accurately as it was intended, and as we know, that just doesn't happen so easily. And a lot of other things can happen that we don't want to have happen if we're just relying on language only. It takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of thought and consideration and care to even facilitate a discussion between people that is going to be productive and respectful. So music can give us a jump start in that process. So going back to our definition, therapeutic music making is the intentional use of a music-based experience designed to positively affect one's physical, cognitive, and or emotional state. So if we can use music to positively affect people's emotional states before they start using words, we're already ahead of the game. We've already made some good progress. I want to talk about another thing that goes back to a personal use of music making, which is music making can serve as a replacement for engaging in compulsive thinking, as it's sometimes called, or I would call non-purposeful thinking, or even damaging thinking. And I want to ask you to think about for a second, what would be a couple types of thoughts? And when I'm saying types of thoughts here, I mean categories of thought that you would rather not engage in. You'd rather not do. And there's a couple that kind of stand out in my mind, but I want to know what you would put in that category. So I'm asking you, we all have different types of thoughts throughout our day, and some of them do us good, some of them not so much. So what are the types of thoughts you'd rather not do? If you could erase a couple thought types, what would you erase? Okay, so here would be my two main categories. One is thoughts about things that we believe happened in the past that bring us feelings that we don't want to have. These would be remembering conflicts, arguments, anything or things that we did that we wish we didn't do. I would generally categorize those as regrets. Anything that we're thinking of that we're remembering that gives us a feeling that we really don't want. It makes us sad. It brings us down. And of course, if you do that a lot, you might have a condition, a whole shift in your mood, your affect, and your entire being, and you might get depressed. That's one of the ways we get there, is thinking a lot about things that we that we don't enjoy. We didn't enjoy it at the time, and here we are again thinking about it. I don't recommend that. I try not to do it myself, and I have ways and techniques that I've developed to not do that, which we could talk about in the Evolve podcast, but that's another topic altogether. The other main category would be thoughts about things that could happen in the future, but that we don't want to happen. We generally call that worrying. It seems like everybody's doing it, and it seems like nobody wants to do it. So I'm not really sure why everybody's doing it, other than they have no control over their minds, apparently. Worrying and regret, thinking about things in the future, thinking about things in the past has been the topic of discussion by spiritual leaders and practitioners for thousands of years. It's one of those things that as humans, we have to grapple with because we have very busy minds. And that's okay. It's okay to have a busy mind. But what we want to do is use our minds for things that help us. We want to use our minds well. But if we're still able to not limit or diminish or extinguish worrisome thoughts or regretful thoughts, one of the ways we can use music, and this is what I was getting to, one of the ways we can use music is to engage in a musical activity so that the musical activity becomes a placeholder for our thoughts and our feelings, and it takes up space in the present so that space is not filled with these other types of thoughts. And sometimes we call that distraction. I like to think of it more as a filling your mental space with something good as opposed to something you don't want. So that is another way we can use music therapeutically. Okay, so that's my list. That's what I have for you guys. I would love to hear from you. So either leave a comment on the YouTube channel. You can certainly email me. I'm always receptive to getting your emails through my website, kalanimusic.com, or you can just send it straight to office@kalanimusic.com. Again, the YouTube channel, if you're listening to the podcast, is Kalani Music on YouTube. You can also find me at Kalani Music on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Before we sign off today, and I want to thank you guys for hanging in there this whole time. It's a lot of words to listen to straight. And I might put in some musical interludes on the podcast version. But the last thing I want to leave you with is a therapeutic music making opportunity and school and training that's coming up the end of September. And this is 2014. So if you're listening to this later and you missed it, check the website anyway, because there's probably one coming up in whatever year you happen to be listening to this. We're talking about Flute Harvest. And earlier I mentioned the Native American flute. It's one of my favorite instruments for therapeutic music making because it connects us to our bodies so completely. Connects us to our breath, our fingers, our tongue, our mouth, our lips. Everything is engaged with the flute. So we're going to also be doing drumming. We'll also be doing other kinds of melodic and harmonic musical play. We're going to be talking about therapeutic music making more at Flute Harvest. My colleague and friends, Clint Goss and Vera Shanoff, are also going to be teaching there. We're going to have lots of people from all over attending. You'll make new friends. You might see old friends there. Think about coming, go to Flute Harvest and look it over and consider whether it's a good fit for you. If it is, register and we'll see you there. So that's fluteharvest.com, my website, kalanimusic.com, and the Developmental Community Music website, where you can find out more about my training programs and other resources, is playsinglaughs.com. Play, sing, laugh, 3 things that you want to do more of in your life. I really want to thank you guys for joining me today. Thanks for everybody watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast. You can always reach out and reach me through the various channels that I've identified here. But I really want to thank all of you for all the good work that you do in your lives, in your communities, and for other people through music. I want to wish you all happy music making. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time on Kalani Live. Bingo!